Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer, and today's guest, he is back, the original premier guest of The Chosen Life, the original Monopoly man, Mr. George Tremis. George, welcome back to The Chosen Life.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be back. I like being a fixture on the show.
So, George, true or false that the original Monopoly man was based on you?
Some have said that. I submitted it to Wikipedia, but they rejected it. So I guess it's not official.
I never noticed the resemblance, but you know what? You put a mustache on you, a top hat, tux, and some tails. I could see it.
You know what? I'm going to do that this Halloween. I think the Monopoly Man's a little bit chubbier, and he's definitely not as red, but it's probably because he didn't go to the gym at noon like I did. So
Well, that was my first question when we were off the air getting ready for the episode. I said to you, "Did you grab a yoga class before this? What's going on?" Turns out you and I had the same mindset. So you grabbed a gym class before this taping, and now I started off early in the morning. You were mid morning. That's why you're still red. I had a chance to go down. So I could tell you, I've gone to do tapings for podcasts after yoga sessions, and with the sweat dripping into my eyes, George, it looks like somebody took lemons and squeezed them in there. And people have looked at me and they're like, did you just do some coke? What's going on? I'm like, no, it's yoga class. It's yoga. But yoga, after a good sweat session, like my eyes are fiery red and it takes about a day or so to go down.
well, you know it's a good workout then, right? So I actually did a kettlebell workout, and I'm just learning that. And I always thought it just looked like a gimmick, but no way. It's intense. Like the post-exercise burn is real. Like I felt faint. I felt challenged in a way I hadn't been in a long time, and I feel overheated still, almost, well, maybe 45 minutes later. So
Folks, when you want to know somebody is jacked, when they're wearing a sweater, half zip, long sleeve, and they still look jacked, that's when you know they are sincerely jacked. George, you set the bar so high for the rest of us, my friend, in every possible way. So we're just trying to keep up here.
I love you, brother.
Love you
Here,
too, man.
let me give you one of these.
Well, don't peek too early, man. That's at the end of the episode. You don't remember, like, we do that at the end. We can't get people too excited too quickly.
Oh, you're
Now,
right. You're right.
George, reflecting back now, we're in the year 2023. As promised, you're going to come back in January, and you were the premier guest on the Chosen Life podcast. We started from ground zero. There was nothing. There was the logo, obviously, the flexing and everything else. That's going to live forever. But when you came on that premiere episode, and not knowing what this show is going to be, and then you see on social media the weekly guests and everything else, did the show go where you expected it to be? How did you envision it when you first came on as guest number one?
I think I was blessed with the benefit of getting some insight into your vision. So what I really have to credit you for is that your vision came to life. You made it a reality. So did it deviate much from my expectations? No, because I had unwavering belief in you right from the start. And you delivered on what you said. And what I can say is the range of guests you have and the topics you have, I feel like there's something for everybody. And you bring in big names some people haven't heard about, like the breadth and range of guests you've had on the show. I think that's what surprised me. I'm really impressed. So you did what you said you were going to do, but you did it to a degree I didn't even expect, even with my insight that I had from you sharing the vision with me. I mean, you even got names like GT on the show and
On episode number one. And it's funny, I was talking with the producer early on, and I said to him, I envision two spin-off shows. That's where we're gonna go because I have many interests in life, but I really love sports, and I'm a huge baseball guy, a huge wrestling guy, and I felt like I'm gonna end up talking on the Chosen Life every single week about baseball and wrestling. So I need to make separate shows for those. And it's amazing. Like I had a vision of it and manifest it, and boom, it comes to be. And that was really cool. It's people don't realize the amount of work that goes into putting three shows every week, but let alone one. But when you have good co-hosts, and with the world the way it is, there's always a range of topics. I found it that it's fun. Like at the end of the day, as long as it's fun and you're enjoying it, it doesn't really feel like work. Like everything else. The moment that you start to dread something and it just doesn't feel fun anymore, then you got to question it because it's really hard to produce. And that's a metaphor, I think, for every facet of life, whether it's personal or professional.
definitely, I agree. But credit to you, because it is a lot of work. I mean, I have trouble just keeping up with putting out a few reels a week on my social media and amongst everything else I have on the go, just like yourself. So kudos to you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Any particular guests that stuck out to you as far as surprises?
I can't say that there was any one in particular. Each of them had surprising moments during the course of your discussions with them. So I can't really single out any one person because I found every episode had some aha moment, which is really what you want, right? That consistency of something for everybody in those aha moments. So that's what I enjoy about the show.
It's funny, and you are absolutely correct on that, because we come in with an agenda every week to what we're going to be talking about, but sometimes the conversation steers and you never know, all of a sudden something will get dropped and you just go in a whole different direction with it. Classic example. So I'm a big fan of the show Better Call Saul, and not going to get Saul on the show because that's just the way life is. He's very busy filming his new show right now. But I got the singer from the theme song of Better Call Saul. So the band's called Little Barry, and based out of the UK. I connected with their manager. Cool. It took quite a few weeks to get that one done. But Little Barry comes on the show, and we talk about the Better Call Saul theme song and his life in the UK. Turns out we have the same favorite band, the Stone Roses, who were supposed to be the second coming of the Beatles, which nobody heard of them outside of the UK, basically, but it was pretty cool. So we kind of talked about that. And as we were finishing off the episode, I looked at him and I said to him, you know, it was a little bit of a challenge getting this together because I know you and your band were touring up in Ireland and around the UK, I understood. So how did the tour go? And he goes, oh, I wasn't touring with my band. I was touring with Liam Gallagher. And I'm like, really? Well, we're going to go there. And we proceeded to have a 20-minute conversation on Liam Gallagher. And like, imagine this is the life you live, that you get to be a rock star. And all of a sudden you get a text message from Liam Gallagher. Oh, by the way, I'm planning to go on tour and one of my guys is sick. Can you come fill in for this tour this summer? Sure, Liam, no problem. Like, wow, that guy's like, we're not worthy, but like, wow, cool life. And it's kind of neat. Like, you know, no matter where we are based in the world, no matter what our profession is, our education, everybody's got their story to tell. Everybody's either living their chosen life or want to live their chosen life. And the idea being is of this show, let's inspire positivity and bring people from all facets and see, hey, hard work, dedication, practice, it can happen for them. It can happen for you.
It's very true.
And on that note, now we are in the year 2023. And George, when we filmed episode number 1, I don't think we could have predicted that this is where we would be in the world right now as far as how everything looks. Now, you being in the real estate market as a realtor, I'm in the real estate market as a real estate lawyer. When we were sitting January 2022, felt like, you know, for the last decade or so, the good times are just going to keep on rolling. Well, the world didn't stop. It certainly paused and it's readjusting. So in today's episode, I really want to focus on where we are in 2023 in all aspects. And I can tell you from being in the trenches, I always tell people, do not believe for gospel what you hear in the media, that you need to actually talk to professionals who are in it. Because I can tell you from experience, I get interviewed for enough articles. The second they come to interview me for a topic, they already have decided what my answers are going to be. They decided which angle they want to go with it. And all the questions are steering to where they want to go. And you know what sells the best, George? Doom and gloom. People love to be scared, the bejeebers out of them. That will make them tune in. But that's not always reality. And that doesn't always give hope. So today I wanted to talk to you about, let's start off, first of all, in the real estate market today, sitting here in January 2023, where are things at from your perspective and where do you see the market going this year?
So it's interesting because you mentioned the media and how they like to sell the doom and gloom. So, I mean, there's evolutionary reasons for why that triggers in us so much. I mean, I'm a big fan of psychology, especially with sales psychology, and a lot of my reels that I put out are about that. But I also put out social media posts about don't believe the media myths, cut through the noise. If you want to be exceptional, you have to do the exceptional. Don't fall into groupthink. The problem is people fall into the media groupthink because the media is very, very good at doing that. They're a well-oiled machine to trigger our fear responses, our evolutionary responses, and the doom and gloom. The reality is you got to follow the numbers. And it's not like numbers can't lie. We've all heard about lying with statistics, but the reality is volume may be down. There may have been a decline in prices, which is primarily interest rate driven, but that's played its way through the system. And a lot of real estate has to do with mass psychology, just like stock market and anything else, right? Where you have a number of people that are consumers of a product. And when the sentiment shifts, it shifts the market for that product. But what I've seen is a soft landing in the statistics because I look at them every month, and I've actually seen a slight uptick. So we went from a hot seller, like crazy hot sellers market. We're talking like 1.3. So what that is like the speed to market, right? For the number of new listings in any given month, how many sales occurred. So if it's 1 out of every 2, you have a balanced market. You go lower, it becomes more and more and more of a buyer's market. You go higher, it becomes more and more of a seller's market. So essentially, we're now back into the early signs of a seller's market again. So it's funny, it went seller, balanced, buyer. Now I actually saw an uptick to seller last month.
I'm not surprised by you saying that. And I am going to look into my crystal ball and try to predict why that is. And I'm going to tell you, based on my experience, at least over the past few years, we're looking at this time of year. Generally, a lot of people don't list for whatever reason. People still need to buy for whatever reason, whether they have to increase the size of their home, they have to downsize, they have to change jobs, marital situation change, kid situation change, whatever it is. And it tends to be that, there's a myth, I think, that if you're a seller, you're going to get the lowest price possible in the winter. Well, you have the least amount of competition also. So you still have these amount of buyers, not as many sellers. And it feels like that's a good position to be as a seller in that case.
As long as you have a good product and the buyer for your product, you'll always be able to sell it if you price it right. Speaking of pricing, the reality is as interest rates went up, prices went down, but it nets out pretty much the same. So the mortgage payments are pretty much the same. So what people are buying and affording hasn't really changed. The housing prices just had to come down to reflect the increased cost of borrowing. But the demand levels, the underlying demand was pretty much consistent. It's only consumer sentiment that caused these fluctuations to a certain degree. And now we're starting to see a reversion back to the long-term trend.
So you have that person that bought a year or two ago on a variable mortgage rate, and then they're sitting around the water cooler saying, oh, wow, over the last 6 months, my mortgage payments went up by $1,000 a month. My mortgage payments went up by $500 a month. That's what people are hearing. But if they've looked at their particular situation, if they don't own a particular home and they're looking to get in the market for the first time, go and calculate out, okay, that home I was going to purchase last year versus this year, give round numbers. If I'm spending $200,000 less now, let's say I bought a property, 1.5 million, $2 million, for example, and it's gone down by 200,000. The interest rates have gone up though. Like you're saying, I'm kind of in the same boat, but it's also nice to technically have more equity in the property because you have to put in $200,000 less. And if rates do go down, which many are predicting are going to happen over the course, because they're not going to go up to the sky, as far as people know. And eventually, when this just inflation stops and we need to go down, people will be in a good boat again. Like if you look over the course of the last 15 years, everybody went variable, always did well. Now everybody's saying, oh, I wish I locked in the fix. Well, it's a little blip, but we don't have enough history now to say this is how it's going to be forever.
Correct. And just looking at prices is only one part of the story. Like we're filling out the story right now. I think a great example is one of my listings. It was an assignment purchase. We purchased it October of 2022. Am I getting the dates right? Sorry, 2021. And now we're back to the same price point we're about to sell at as the price we paid for it when we bought it. So the prices went like this, but they've now gone back to that long-term trending, right? And that's really just interest rate driven and consumer sentiment.
And assignments is an interesting one because I do get a lot of requests on them. And whenever we've had blips, it's a lot of people that purchased new construction, paid whatever they paid, thinking they're guaranteed to make money on it. And then all of a sudden, it's time to close with the builder. And like, I can't actually close on this for a variety of reasons. My appraisal is not coming in well. I can't carry this many properties. I bought another property in the meantime. And when you want to sell under assignment, under pressure, those are when people could scoop up some pretty good deals. And I've had people that had to sell at a break even or even a loss on assignments just to get out of the transaction. But when people are buying in a hot property like downtown Toronto condominiums, for example, and you know if it's in a half desirable building, you're going to get easily 5 different offers on assignments usually, just because there's not that much inventory. And when they're buying under assignment, depending on what stage they're at, they may only have to give a deposit, and they may still be a year or two out till they have to get the mortgage if it's not closing right now.
Well, I think that's why a lot of people predicted a really bad crash, right? And again, we have not had a crash. We've had a soft landing, basically. And they predicted that crash because they're saying, "Oh, look at all the new construction, all the sales that have happened." And with the 2-year window, people bought at a time. And with the change in the borrowing environment, people thought that they'd be dumping assignment sales into the market and crashing the prices, but that didn't really happen.
So what kind of leads do you tend to find right now versus a typical winter January? Are you finding it's the same amount of buyers, sellers versus the last couple of years? What type of interest are you seeing from both ends of purchases and sales?
In terms of, sorry, volume
The
of
the,
activity?
the volume, the type of buyers, types of sellers. Do you see it's anything out of the ordinary what you normally would in a January?
No, nothing really out of the ordinary. I mean, maybe the volumes are less than these unusual historical points in time that we've talked about, but generally, the way I look at it, is that the markets go up, the markets go down, economics change, the economy changes, governments change, politics change, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that control things. So I know a lot of realtors are saying, "Oh, the market sucks right now and I'm not getting any business." I'm blessed, and I also believe that if you keep up your activities, you're going to keep going through whatever ups and downs happen. So I personally and my team have not experienced a slowdown. We're all listing, we're all doing transactions, we're all maintaining our consistency, because at the end of the day, real estate still happens. It's the one thing we're pretty much guaranteed. Everybody always needs a place to live, right? It's one of the most
100%.
original products in the world. People
And
needed a roof over their heads.
And that's something we're going to get to in a little bit, because I believe you're right there. I can tell you from, again, being in the trenches, let's say, for example, in peak times, I'm working with 200 realtors. Now, maybe working with it feels like 30, but those 30 are controlling all the market basically. So you have 170 realtors out of the 200 are saying, "Wow, it's dead. I guess there's no business to be had," but they're sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring. Whereas you have other 30 people pounding the pavement, still doing transactions. And I've had people come to me, "Wow, you still get deals in? I thought there's no deals whatsoever." No, there are. That's a myth. It's funny. You just need to work harder to find those people. And I think, especially with where COVID was at, and people could be on the computer, be on the phone, they business would just trickle in. Now they're realizing, wait a minute, I gotta go put on a suit, I gotta go put on a shirt, I gotta go put on some shoes, and I gotta go pound the pavement again. That's the new reality.
Mm-hmm. Anybody who had the disciplines and the consistency before the hot market, during the hot market, and after the hot market will be disciplined and consistent in their business. The ones that are saying, "Oh man, there's no business to be had," it's because they were riding a wave. They didn't even have to be a skilled surfer. They just got on and body surfed and, came to shore. But now you've got to be talented. You've got to be a sales professional. You've got to be somebody that understands the why behind why people buy and help them buy. You have to provide that service. And I think the ones that just got into it for the transactions and the money and the wrong reasons, they're going to get filtered out. But you see this in a lot of industries and professions, etc. Probably more so in real estate, though,
And
because
that's
of the lesser barriers to entry as opposed to being a lawyer or a CPA or something like that.
And that's a lot of industries that we talk about. Me and my partner David over at Kormans LLP, we discuss that often, as far as you're going to see a lot of industries, a lot of companies, and with employees, there's going to be a lot of rude awakenings, because people thinking that they're more valuable than they are and thinking that they're immune to the economic upturn, downturn. There's going to be a shift. Unfortunately, there already is. You can see it, as far as slowly cutting out the fat, so to speak, and layoffs, and as far as people having jobs, not having jobs, and not expecting to lose a job. And guess what? There isn't a lineup of people looking for employees at this point. So when people come to me for career advice saying, I'm thinking about maybe changing it up, I'm like, you have 2-3 years experience in this kind of economy. You stay put, you work your butt off, keep your head down, smile, and get your experience, and don't shake the boat. Because I personally, I've never been an advocate as far as employment changes during downtimes.
Well, yeah, you're working with the market against you, the labor market against you, because of the economics of the current situation. So definitely, I think you should stay put. But one thing I think of as I was listening was Jack Welch's vitality curve, right? GE. And so he talks about how they would always take off the bottom 20%. And this is how it kept the company vital, the vitality curve. Well, you know what? That's symbolic of life. You have to try to maintain above that minimum 20%, or you are going to get shaved off of whatever you're doing. So that's that drive, that discipline, that consistency to always improve. Because if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. That's the reality of today. So as soon as you take your foot off the gas, you're falling behind.
You remember a company by the name of Radio Shack?
Yeah.
Which became the source. I remember going to Radio Shack's head office many, many years ago. And I'm in the parking lot trying to find a parking spot. And I see there's this like signs. I counted them, I believe it was 15, maybe 20 of reserved parking spots for vice presidents. Okay. The whole thing was vice president of this, vice president of that, vice president of this, vice president of that. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a company with this many vice presidents. That doesn't seem very good to me. And
I thought that only happened in investment banking where everybody's a vice president.
no, and it's that kind of like upper middle management where also you're talking about the bottom 20%, but there's people also with roles out there that are, you're almost too expensive for what you do, but how much do you actually produce? And then you go somewhere else. Are you going to get that role? What can you bring to the table? That's a scary thing. I recall being on Bay Street as a young lawyer many, many moons ago. And one of the things was at the end of the day, if you're going to survive out there, you have to be able to bring a client base. That's just the way it was. And to be able to have a client base on Bay Street, the same way in New York City, if you're on Wall Street, it's a tricky proposition to have that kind of size of client and be able to justify those kind of billings, because not many companies, other than the upper echelon ones, want to spend money on major size, like 200 plus lawyer law firms. And I said to myself, if I'm not able to bring that to the table, they could just let me go at any time. I'm just a mucker. I'm just a grinder, And I said to myself, I never want to be a grinder. I want to be a producer. I want to control my own destiny. And that's where I would say, no matter what profession somebody's in, like you're as a realtor, me as a lawyer, think about how much you control your own destiny, and then think about, are you okay with that? And, people that punch in nine to five, never have to work beyond that, have X set amount of roles. You have to understand there's always going to be a ceiling that way. And that's okay. Some people are very okay with that. Some people are not. But the ones that are not, I tell them, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to be able to push ahead. You got to be able to go beyond that and really bring things to the table. And that's where I think, I hate shitting on the millennial generation, but they are going to have it really tough because it's the enabled generation where they want it right now, and they want to get paid on what they will be able to do in the future, not what they've done and can do currently. And that's, again, a very scary proposition, especially in this kind of economy.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that that's very prevalent within that demographics mindset or that age group. But I will say there are nice exceptions to the rule. So we have a younger fellow on the team in my group, and he's 26, and he does not have that attitude, which I'm very pleased about. In fact, he's like, let me learn. I don't care. I don't care if I don't make money necessarily. I will go the extra mile. I want to learn. I want to be great at what I do. I'm going to put in the time now to be great later. And that's the right attitude.
My favorite age group as far as clients go, one of my favorites, let's say, I love those clients that are between 27 to 32, 27 to 33, first-time buyers, lived at home, saved up all their money, have a good, healthy down payment, are ready to jump into the market, young professionals, work their butts off at work, saved every dollar, self-made. Give them a lot of respect. Those are the hard workers out there, and they're trying to get through. And I've seen those kind of buyers, George, when they're starting off as young as 25 even. By the time they're 33 to 35, they're buying their fourth property with me. That's pretty freaking cool too.
They get started really young. I mean, I wish I got started sooner. When's the best time to buy real estate? Yesterday.
Second best time? Today.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's a good one.
But when we're talking about real estate and we're talking about the economy, this has been a theme that has come up throughout this program when I've had different people on, regardless of their walks of life. But one common thing I've always noticed for my uber wealthy clients, there's one common denominator with them. They all own real estate. Facts.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of discussion. And it boggles my mind people that accumulate wealth and are resistant to owning real estate. I don't get it.
It's contrary to the facts. The facts are real estate has made more wealthy people than any other asset class, any other type of investment. I mean, yes, you hear about these crypto millionaires, whatever, but these are one-offs. You want to go with the masses. You don't want to fall into survivor's bias, which I talk about in sales psychology. But that's what happens. People say, oh, I got to make money in crypto or do this or that, because like we're talking about social media, that's what they're fed. But the reality is the tried and true, old, stodgy, boring real estate, I'm sorry, but that's the way to consistently build wealth. So if you want to make a flash, go do something else. If you want to build wealth like the big people do, the wealthy people, follow their footsteps. Success leaves footprints.
And those real estate people, once they finally hit it big, one thing you'll notice is it took them a long time. They built the foundation slowly. It took forever to get the first property. Then it took forever to be able to accumulate enough equity in that property to be able to acquire the second property. They did it slow and steady. But it's funny how one becomes two, two becomes four, and four becomes eight very, very quickly.
It's the power of compounding. I think that's the name of one of the books I read about compounding and the power it has. And that's what happens. That's what I did too. You got one, you turn it into two, you double down, you take equity, you leverage it, and you grow from there. And then you start to get into multi-doors. Now that's the next level game.
Yes, people. I mean, there's three camps right now I'm seeing as far as multi-unit res has always been a very attractive proposition. Imagine like you look at a condo building and think how there's an owner of each unit. Now imagine there's one person that owns this whole building. That blew my mind. I can't get past that. That's pretty neat. The idea of laneway houses, I think, is a very attractive proposition where you can own a piece of property with a house. Then you have enough property to be able to make a second house and then just rent out that house and it pays all your expenses. Pretty freaking cool. And number three is Airbnbs, and, the media loves to crap on laneway houses, loves to crap on Airbnbs saying, this is taking money and properties away from the real users. I don't see that at all. I think that at the end of the day, it's smart business, people providing a service, and they're taking a lot of risk. And there's so little ways of making money anymore in this world that, someone's able to acquire property and run an Airbnb and run it successfully. My hat's off to them. I've met people that have owned into double digits Airbnbs. And you know what? They're doing really great. But on the same token of it, they work really damn hard. It's, the money just doesn't roll in. Somebody had to have acquired a down payments for all these properties. They had to make the mortgage payments. They had to upkeep the properties. It's not that simple.
It's not. And that's why you have a lot of opportunity for syndication or varieties of syndication. So, I mean, you're familiar with GT Capital Group. So we actually have the Airbnb property down in Lake Erie. That's the proof of concept for the Airbnb fund. And then we're looking to the multi-res, multi-door this year. 2023 is going to be a big, big year for GT Capital Group, let me tell you, as well as my other lines of business. But I disagree with the people that are naysayers and contrarians because it's just fear. Oh no, this Airbnb is here, it's going to ruin the neighborhood. Actually, our Airbnb has contributed to domestic spending of travel and tourism dollars as opposed to it going out of the country. Our Airbnb has contributed to the town of Dunnville getting more traffic coming through and people spending money because these are tourists. They don't come there to live and buy their groceries. They come to spend at local business. The marina, they spend money there. They go over to Canadian Tire and they buy like firewood, candles and whatever. So I'm driving money into the local economy with my Airbnb. So I disagree with those people.
It's very easy to sit in the living room and not work very, very hard and listen to doom and gloom and blame somebody else. And I think by faulting somebody who's taking initiative, if they have to admit that those people are, wow, look at they're revolutionary, that's so impressive, then they have to reflect within themselves and say, wow, you know what? I'm not doing very much for myself. So that's why it's easier always to bring somebody else down than to reflect within yourself and say, what are they doing right and I'm doing wrong here? And I think that's anytime anybody's ready to criticize somebody who's been successful, think for a second what brought them success and what you've done, and maybe, look within you instead of just trying to blame somebody.
I agree. I mean, the first time I heard this put really well was by Gary Vee. And he said there's two types of people that want to build the tallest building: those that go out there and build the tallest building, and those that just try to knock everyone else's down so that now they have the tallest building. And I thought, wow, that is so true. You can call them haters, you can call them whatever you want, but at the end of the day, it's people that just want to knock down other people's buildings.
It's like, look, if you're gonna tell me like let's build a 30-foot building, I'm gonna tell you, okay, let's go with 28, and then I'll end up building 40. I always love to over deliver, but I always factor that into my calculation. Whereas, George, I've come to the point, especially with service providers, and I tell this to employees all the time, of any company, people are really, really sick of giving their hard-earned money, getting promises, and not getting those promises delivered, and having to chase and chase and chase. I'm giving you my hard-earned money. I want to see results. And yeah, it feels like we're in this day and age, in the year 2023, people don't want to work. And it's like you can offer them any amount of money, they don't care. That doesn't motivate them anymore. And that's really scary, what has happened to our society when we come to a point in time where people can't earn that money if they put in the effort and they say, you know what, I'm making enough to get by, I'm good enough with this. Like, and that seems to be a common trend as well.
It's a broad topic, but I mean, the point I want to touch on that is, I think of when I'm listening to you about follow-up. So the number one complaint about realtors, you know what it is? Follow-up, communication, which is so ironic because we spend so much money doing lead generation. So you're going to go get these leads and you're not going to follow up consistently and regularly? That doesn't make sense. So I actually, when I'm speaking, I'm doing workshops, I'm talking to my group, I have an expression, and maybe I should try to copyright it or trademark it. We can offline that after. But I basically say, if you don't follow up, you got to F you or you're going to get F you'd. Right? If you don't do the F you, they're going to tell you F you. So you got to follow up. And, I'm playing on the acronym there or the two letters, but it's true. And that applies across industries and businesses, like you're saying. I want to give you money, I want a service, and now you don't want my money, you don't want to give me the service. Like, why should I chase you to give you my money? So, right, it ties in with what you're saying, I believe. 1000%. So if you're a professional, you follow up. That's part of being a professional.
So let's agree that the follow-up is very, very important. And I could tell you, if I was a realtor and, a realtor that gets 1 or 2 transactions closed a month, I think is doing really great, depending on the dollar figure, depending on where they're at in life. And I can tell you, if I was a realtor and that was my life, I would have all my clients on a board. I'd look at it'd be in my kitchen, and I would look at them every morning, every night before I go to bed. I would be thinking about them. I would call them all almost every single day, check to see if they need their dry cleaning picked up, their dogs walked, whatever we need here, folks. You need me to drive you to clean a tire? Let's go. The realtors that go above and beyond, that I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit, but give literally that kind of service, like that door-to-door service, the second the introduction comes, the second that the money gets paid and deals closed, that realtor was available every stage throughout. They're like a concierge, a liaison. People love that kind of service regardless of that age, and they'll be very loyal to that kind of service provider.
Absolutely. Everybody wants to be treated like a VIP and what I call a VIF. So very important person and very important friend. Friend of the business, friend of what you do as a service, friend of your company, friend of your group, and a very important person to you. You make people feel special that way, legitimately, genuinely, and help them buy. And they will remember the experience because they'll remember how you made them feel.
I will remember that one. VIF, very important friend. I like that a lot because, I joke around with some buddies sometimes, that when you're meeting somebody who's not authentic and you see them and you're like, hey, how's it going? They're like, good, good, good. What about you? And as you start talking, they're like, oh, that's great. And they can just go on to the next thing. Like, they're obviously not even paying attention to what you have to say there. That's not a real friend. That's not somebody who actually cares. I know I work with professionals, and if you're watching this, you know who you are. You'll call me up at 5:00 in the morning or like 11 p.m. And they're like, hey, buddy, how's it going? I'm like, what do you need now? Just okay. You need a status reviewed. You need a deal closed. What do you, like? Don't pretend to be my friend. You have no interest in my friendship because it's all about business, which is fine. We're cool, but you know when someone's authentically being your friend and when somebody's not. You know, and I I found, at least I try to pride myself on this, and I tell other professionals this: when you're trying to buy business, when you're trying to make people feel like a number, that I don't think you'd be very successful. When you focus on that relationship building and you make somebody to a very important friend, regardless if they're going to work with you, they'll be really loyal that way. And they may not give you your business that way, but they will send everybody else to you. And that's just as good, if not better.
I completely agree. And it's about, but it has to come from within, right? So I have like one of my reels I talk about, or in my workshops, etc. Rapport building, you got to build rapport with yourself, which means you first need to be aligned with yourself, your mission, your why, your values, and that will drive you and help you to evolve to be the best you can be in your chosen profession. So I talk about evolving from salesperson to sales profession. I'll give you a great actual story. So I took on a lease client in Brantford, right? You know, and anybody in real estate knows that leases really don't pay by comparison to actual sales, purchases and sales of properties, right? But if I decide to take on the lease, I'm obligated to do 100% the best I can for that person, not 110%. That's a nonsense notion. 100% of what you can do. And so I've had 2 referrals now from these people, even though we just closed January 1st on their lease. Why? Because they said, you know what? Not only are you a realtor that communicates, you keep in touch, you follow up, but you went to Punta Cana and you closed our transaction from the airport before you got on the plane to fly back. On your vacation, you made us a priority. I said, yes, because yes, I need my vacation. Yes, I need my R&R. But if I chose to take you on as a client, regardless of the monetary value of that transaction, you're getting a home is more important than my vacation right now. It really is. And I put them first, and rightfully so. And so that's what we're talking about, right? That service, that commitment. If you're going to take on that client, you commit to do what needs to be done to achieve the result you promised or more.
You know, it's a couple. I think now about residential and commercial real estate. And residential, where you have people that are not buying a house, but they want to lease a house or lease a condo, and people say, nah, that's not really worth my time. How many of those people end up buying and end up going to the person who helped them lease it in the first place? You know, thinking of it that way. The other one that blows my mind is on a commercial transaction where you help somebody buy a commercial property, and then they're saying, okay, I need help to do leases with my tenants. I don't do leases. You'll have to go to somebody else. Guess what?
Wow.
That person who's going to help you with the leases, I guarantee you they're going to get your next transaction. So that's like giving away business. That's to me, it's not acceptable.
It doesn't make sense. And even if you think, like, listen, life is unpredictable, right? So these clients I was mentioning, my thought was they'll probably never buy, but I'll always help them lease. I very much like this family, right? Next thing I know, I get a call and it's like, yeah, our folks are going to sell in a year and they're also going to give us money. So this lease is only going to be for a year because we're going to buy and our parents are going to sell and buy again with you. Well, okay, that was a surprise. Well, thank you. Why? Just because I made them a priority when I was on my vacation.
And now, reflecting where we're at again in 2023 and where things have opened up, you know, we're not where we were back in COVID days. I think a lot of professionals are forgetting the importance of in-person interactions. And you know, David Corbin and I, we talk about it all the time as far as seminars go. And it's not the same thing when you're hosting a seminar in person as virtual. And virtual, you don't get that same touching. You're looking and you see a bunch of blank screens. You know, you don't know if they're even on, or and if they are, they may have it muted. When you're in person and you can touch, you can see, you can feel, it's so much better. And same thing as far as going out to lunches, dinners, brunches, conferences, whatever it is, human interaction. I'm telling you, if you're any kind of professional, you want to find lead generation, the best way to do that is do it in person, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You know me, I'm all about the sales psychology and also communication and nonverbal communication. And like this, as great as it is to see each other, we're still missing a big piece of nonverbal communication with things like even spacing from each other, the ability to reach out and almost touch you, or maybe touch your shoulder lightly. Like these things, see, it's not the same. It's not the same. But these things are huge for building rapport, for building connections. So when I first started in real estate, it's ironic, and this is still taught. You pick 5 properties, you curate them for your client, you take your buyers, you sit down afterwards, and you make them buy one. What? in the biggest transaction of your life, you're going to treat it like it's a chop shop here. That doesn't make sense to me. In fact, I love showing houses. I lean into it. People will say, oh, wow, you're not making great use of your time. BS. I disagree. I've taken people to see as many, I think the most I lost count was 60 homes, 69 homes with one set of buyers. Do you know how tight we are now?
Better be.
That's how the relationship is formed, is that time together, that rapport building, the commonality of a goal and being in it together. That's why I talk about being part of your real estate journey. I'm like a Sherpa to help you climb that mountain and achieve the peak of what you're looking for in real estate. And that's how we bond together, by making that climb. I love it.
And anybody listens to this, think about it for a second, how you deal with clients, customers, employees. And do you rush people out the door? Is there a time limit? I was brought up the same way. I remember being in a law firm, and you remember who you are, is when you have a client appointment, you are to get them in and out within 20 minutes. There's strict limit. We don't want to see you any longer. Otherwise, it's not productive time. I got yelled at for spending an hour and a half with a client. And I said to them, you realize that this person is blind, that they have their special, it's like a plastic, almost like it's like a size of a piece of paper, but there's a space in the middle where you have to space it for them where they can hold their pen and sign. It has to be, so there's that, they have a system together with it. And they said, it still should not take an hour and a half. I said, I'm not rushing a blind person. They already are uncomfortable as it is. They can't see the paperwork. I have to explain it. They have a family member there. We're going to take as long as we need to make sure the person is comfortable. That's outrageous. I was really upset about that. And I've had, you can have somebody new to the country, and language is an issue. Education is an issue. Learning disability of some sort. You never know what a person's particular situation is. Accommodation is very, very important. And somebody who feels like they're being rushed as a number out the door like a conveyor belt, I can't see that they'd want to come back and work with a professional like that. So kudos to you, George, as far as working with your clients that way. And I advocate that for everybody. This is, again, about relationships. You're wasting time. Really, when they become your lifelong client, they bring you all their transactions, all their friends, all their family. That's the best marketing. They are your marketing agent now. And what, you put in an extra half an hour, 2 hours? I think that's time really well spent.
I agree with you, and it extends even beyond real estate. So, I've owned multiple businesses and still do, and I've had numerous employees. And my philosophy was always, even when I was doing business consulting, was the right people in the right seats doing the right thing. So when you tell me this story about your experience at one of the past law firms, this person was not a good leader. Okay, I don't even know who you're talking about, but I can tell you they're not a good leader. Because if you believe you put the right person in the right seat, and that's the right person doing the right things, trust that they know how to handle their business. You should have an open door that they come to you if they feel like they could have managed it better. But the reality is, people respect professionals' times for the most part. Even when you go see your doctor, when I see my doctor, they take more time with me, but I'm respectful of their time. We only take as much as we need. When I show 60 homes, there's a reason for showing 60 homes. We're not wasting our time. We're putting in what's required to achieve the outcome. And if you have people working with you or in a group, that's the way you should treat them. You guys are doing the right things in the right seats, doing the right things, the right people. Trust them to form the connections and do what's right for the client.
One thing that David Corr mentions all the time, and I'm going to sum today's episode with this thought and how we're going to avoid this, because I think it's kind of an epidemic. He's right. Is, when we were all growing up back in our day, there was no cell phones. There was no texting. There was phone calls on a telephone, and there was meeting in person. That was it. And it feels now that a lot of professionals, they prefer doing the emails. They prefer the text messages. They're very against any kind of phone calls, and definitely against in-person interactions. And I think as a professional, it's really stunting their growth that they don't have that human interaction. When you're brought into a boardroom and it's a big corporate closing, for example, and you're a VP and you don't know really how to shake somebody's hand, and you don't know how to speak with them and interact and mingle with them, people notice that body language. And this is the kind of thing they don't teach you in school. It's the school of life. And so as time is going along, I'm only seeing, George, this is getting worse and worse. How do we help the younger generation understand the importance of phone calls and the importance of human interaction?
So my book that's coming out this year is going to touch on that. You know, I'm very big on communication. I believe we're professional communicators as sales professionals. And I'll take it back to real estate because we're talking a lot of real estate. But we're professional communicators and we're professional negotiators and marketers, right? And so part of what we do is negotiate to achieve better results, right? And communicate more effectively to do better things for our clients. Now, there's a complete opposite broker to me. I'm not going to say where he works or who he is, but there's actually a school of thought and that's being taught that you maximize transactions by never going on the phone, email and text message only. So there's an agent in the Tri-City region. Okay, I gave it up. Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge area. Does not communicate because I've actually tried to do business and it's only text and email. He is doing a disservice to his clients. How are you properly negotiating when you don't have the ability to communicate, influence, persuade with the words you use, how you say them, the cadence, the tonality, everything? And especially in person, when you can introduce more of the body language, the visual, etc. That's how you achieve better negotiation outcomes. So that inhuman connection, interaction is so critical. In fact, I don't think I told you, I've started participating in Harvard negotiation simulations. So I'm always trying to practice my skills. I believe you got to keep training every day. It's just like going to the gym, same thing. And so on the most recent simulation, you got to understand it was a real estate oriented one. They've run it hundreds of thousands of times. I achieved 13% better than the average. Why? Because I keep practicing. So my belief is I achieve 13% better than the average for my clients. So my fee is an investment. So when you're a professional, you've got to lean into it. You've got to engage. You've got to use all forms of communication, the cell phone, talking, email, in person, all of it. I completely agree with you. And to bring the topic full circle, yes, you know, David's right. This is the problem. People are too consumed with the dings, the bings, the rings, the rest of it, and they're not in the moment. So they're not doing the best for their clients. They're not doing the best for themselves, their family, their friends, their own personal life.
George, you remember the days where a seller would get an offer on their home. The seller would be inside the home with the realtor. The buyer's realtor would pull up to the house with the buyers in the car, leave the buyers in the car, go walk up the stairs. The two agents will be talking, sitting at the dining room table with the seller and hammer out a deal that way. Remember those days?
Yeah, I haven't done that in 6 or 7 years.
And remember how deals used to get done and get done effectively that way? There's a very different thing when you see the look in a person's eyes, you hear their voice, you know, that buyer's agent is able to sell their clients a little better. Now you're doing it only over email. I've seen these where the buyer writes out a letter to the seller. This is who we are. This is our beautiful family. We've been looking forever. Do those letters work?
They can't hurt, but you have to understand the motivation of who's across the table from you, right? You have to be doing your intel. And the reality is you can do a lot of intel these days. You can do a lot of background search. So negotiation is all about information control. The more information I have, the more I can influence, the more I can persuade, the more I can introduce red herrings, the more I can leverage what people don't know and what I know. So these letters can work if you position them properly. So for example, we have a listing for a lease and I position the communication back to the other agent, how her client, because we're negotiating on price, right? So they didn't want to come up to our price, etc. But I knew about her client. So I basically said, listen, your client is a single mom who's busted her butt to build her business for 15 years. And she makes good income because I know how much she makes per month. And you know what? She's earned the ability to live in Oakville in the house she wants for her and her 9-year-old son. She's earned it. She deserves it. Don't lose out on this for the price of a Starbucks a day. Done. We got it. Why? Because emotion buys, the brain justifies.
Love that. When you go into a negotiation, the more information you have, the less risk you got. That's just the fact of the matter. You know, it blows my mind going into a conversation with anybody. For example, let's say you're going to a dinner party and you know you're going to be sitting at a certain table and there's an honorary guest there. You don't know what their position is. You don't know what company they work for. You don't know their history. You never know. This could always be like a job interview. You never know when they're going to offer you a position. You never know when they're going to get aligned. When they're going to look at you when you ask them a silly question and they're saying, you not know who I am? That's pretty embarrassing. And I can't tell you how many times people have gone to job interviews and don't look up. They know the person who's interviewing them and they don't bother doing any research on the person that's interviewing them because You come in with that kind of information. You're saying, hey, I know you went to this school, same as me. I know you started here. I know you worked your way up. People love to hear about themselves. And it's such good time spent researching what you're saying right there. People can put it into job interviews. They can put it into getting clients. It works to every facet. So I'm really excited about the book, George. Any other information you can tell us about the book as far as its launch goes?
So we're looking to be published by Q2 of this year, sometime in Q2. I mean, I also don't want to set a hard deadline, necessarily not deliver everything I want to deliver in the book. It's a work in progress, but I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be a great reference for whether you're a new sales person trying to become a sales professional, or you're a full out sales professional that wants to level up your game and learn what you don't know. Because the reality is we don't know what we don't know until we learn from somebody else, whether it's online, in person, whatever have you. So I'm super excited about the book. I'm also speaking at a production summit in Q1 of this year. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be talking about how to fold time. So that's kind of the topic, how to fold time. And this isn't the session on time management. It's about essentially how to leverage how to be a sales professional to do more with less, basically. So that's how you fold time, right? Because we can't change the 24 hours, but I can use my hours better, or I can do the same in less time. So that's how you fold time. And lastly, I'm actually in talks with another company about setting up, this is new, but GT Sales Academy. So when you talk about, how do the millennials or other people or the young professionals coming up learn about sales, learn about the stuff we're talking about, learn about rapport building, human interaction, negotiation, persuasion, influence, communication, words, how they matter, it's all going to be in GT Sales Academy. Online, anytime, 24/7, available to you anywhere in the world.
Love that. Love that. George, for people that want to get in touch with you, best way to reach you?
Oh, wow. There's so many, but we're talking about researching people. You just put in my name, George Tremis. You're going to find everything on my social media. You'll even find about my MBA graduation scores. Like, it's crazy, crazy what you can find online on people. So yeah, just look me up on my social media, GT1 Realty Group, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all that, LinkedIn, hit me up. And yeah, I'd love to chat.
Whether you're looking for a stellar realtor for purchase, sales, leases, you're a professional out there and wanting to master the art of negotiation, anything at all, George loves to mentor, readily available. Reach out to him. He'd love to hear from you. And George, your time is so valuable. It's the most precious gift you can give. And that's what you gave today to the show and to our audience. So we thank you so much for your insights. And when the book is launched, we hope to be one of the first interviews and have you on the show. And we'll be very excited for that book launch.
I would love that. And thank you for your time too. Our time together creates synergy. I think we had a great show today and I appreciate it. And I look forward to the launch and being on again.
You know that feeling when you enjoy speaking with somebody and an hour goes by in a minute. That's when you got a special friendship. And that's where I could see you not just a brother, but a friend as well, a very important friend.
So VIF, brother. VIF.
VIF. And as we end today's episode, we pull out the guns and we say, keep living the chosen life. Thanks, George.
Thank you.